Hello and welcome back to the Data Privacy Lawyer. Today's review, we're going to be looking at a AI URL. It's offered by a bank. We're going to be looking at their practices related to artificial intelligence. We're doing a review on the channel, how organizations are using artificial intelligence and what their representations are to users of the website. That's really important. I want to make a little observation. Generally, when you're reviewing these provisions on a website, because at a minimum, most organizations are going to be making certain representations on their site, I think it's really important for companies to discuss scope when they're drafting these artificial intelligence documentations. We don't really see scope as of yet. Let me see the date this was last updated. There's also not a lot of insight into the specific organization and how they're using AI when it comes to their products and services. So let's take a look at this particular page. AI is rapidly developing. We really want to focus on the personal privacy and data protection component to AI. Let's go to that. Our definition of AI, this is really important. I'll tell you why this is important. Different geographies are going to define artificial intelligence in unique ways. Companies need to grapple with that if they meet the definition in those geographies. For now, CommBank has defined AI as computer systems that are capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as reasoning, learning, perception, and language understanding. So one thing that organizations need to look at is listing all of the geographies where they operate and looking at the AI legislation in those geographies to see if they meet the thresholds for utilizing AI in those countries. Now, CommBank, their URL says Australia. I don't know if the bank exclusively operates in Australia. One thing that I think is of note for this review is just because your company is headquartered in a specific country doesn't absolve your obligations under AI legislation and privacy legislation in other geographies where your products and services are offered. Now, what a lot of organizations will do is their drafting of their public-facing documents like this AI URL, it will focus almost exclusively on their geography and their obligations in that country. But one thing that us as Data Protection Counsel do is we let our clients know that the laws will cover whether you meet the threshold. If the definitions in those legislations are broad and you meet the thresholds, you could have obligations outside of your country that you're headquartered. I hope that makes sense. Because they've put a specific definition here, but this could change if CommBank operates or provides products and services or utilizes artificial intelligence in, let's say, for example, the European Union. Let's go to the privacy section. Transparency. Now, I want to focus on this because this is also a term that's used in the data protection space. And essentially what it means is that you have to be able to understand. They've put what an AI system does should be understandable. And I will go further to say that also letting consumers and customers know exactly how their data is impacted by the AI system. Again, the term understandable is broad enough to encompass what I've just defined. But essentially, any time there is the use of a personal data, whether it's to train your model, whether it's to test your model, however you're using personal data, you need to be transparent about that, because if it identifies an individual, they have rights over that data. And however you're choosing to use it as an organization, you need to be able to provide notice and put in place the proper preferences if a consumer decides that they don't want to be a part of your process. And that's really what transparency looks at. Now, I am intrigued about the privacy and data protection section here. AI systems should comply with privacy and data protection laws. This is very broad, and it really doesn't give us insight into, one, whether CommBank is using an AI system and what their compliance looks like under these laws. It just is a very generic statement. I would be interested in the future. I think more organizations are going to provide more details about what their compliance looks like, as that's definitely something that feeds back into transparency. If CommBank is essentially using an AI system, we as consumers should know how and how our rights are going to be fulfilled based on CommBank's obligations under those data protection laws. Saying that an AI system should comply with privacy and data protection laws, this is a given. The question now is, how is CommBank complying with these laws? And how do we as consumers exercise our rights as it pertains to your use of our personal data? That's really what needs to go on here. I think that this page could definitely do with some updates. I don't know when this was drafted, but they have insights up until June 2025. It talks about CommBank harnessing near real-time AI-powered intelligence to outsmart scammers. In an Australian banking first, CommBank is collaborating with cyber intelligence firm Aparte AI to harness near real-time scam intelligence and help Australians from harm. We definitely can see that there's going to be some personal data, and the reason we know this is because they're working to protect Australians from harm. Australians have rights as it pertains to their personal data. So this provision about AI systems should comply with privacy and data protection laws don't really give us insights into what it is that they're working on. I'm actually going to click the link and see what the article says, but essentially there's not much insight from a transparency perspective on how they are protecting these Australians. We just have insight that they are protecting Australians from harm, but how and what role is CommBank using from a transparency perspective to let us know how they're doing that. I think we're going to see more and more of these articles. It may be that they're in the development. A privacy program is never static. It generally is something that's ever evolving. Most organizations, if not all organizations, are in the business of trying to generate revenue and profits, right? Privacy is one of those things that keeps organizations out of bad press and things like that, which is why we'll generally see these AI URLs and web pages to have very limited information, because this in and of itself, although it might drive business in that it might assist with home loans or insurance, we don't have those insights on this page. Data privacy in and of itself doesn't generate revenue for organizations, but it keeps them out of trouble or fines with regulators, which is why it's still a very essential component that organizations need to grapple with. So I really hope you enjoyed this simple review. My personal preference when it comes to artificial intelligence is one, to see where organizations are on a spectrum from a global standpoint, because there is so much overlap between artificial intelligence and privacy, and organizations need to start thinking about being transparent about how they use artificial intelligence outside of just providing generic insight of what AI generally is. Most people know what AI is. What we're interested in as consumers is how you're using AI to process our personal data, and what your responsibilities are, and how you're going to meet your obligations when it comes to fulfilling our rights. That's what really us as consumers need to know. And that is definitely where companies need to start working towards providing that type of disclosure, just in the same manner in which they provide disclosures on their privacy notices. So I really hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you in another one.